These are all of the top pit clearing builds of the season. But rather than me just listing them for you, hell, you can look this up for yourself, I'm going to try to provide you with something useful. Firstly, we'll discuss how the builds work. But also, I've played all of these builds myself, and they are not for everyone. So knowing this, we'll discuss these three factors: how good the builds are at speed running and farming, how easy they are to gear for and set up, and finally, the most important one, how easy they are to play. Because after a year of doing these videos, I know just how brain dead the lot of you are. No offense. All right, enough yapping, let's get started. And I'm not going to be a piece of shit. So here's the rank 1 right off the bat. The Rake Soyborn. Funnily enough, I think the most of us thought that Quill Volley would be dominating the meta this season, but shit, we were wrong. It's actually Rake getting all the top clears. First things first, for the people that have been sleeping under a rock for the last couple of weeks, what is going on here? Well, shit, it's the new Pantaloonies, the Balazans whatever the fuck. Simply they allow you to deal thorns damage via your attacks, rather than having attacks hit you and then turns it into poison damage. This poison damage can then be unleashed via the Noxious Resonance key, passive, for a large chunk of instant damage along with AoE. All there is left to do then is to stack as many attacks as possible on top of each other, get a bunch of thorns, and enjoy your trip to pit 120. Or is it? Well, not quite. The only reason we're able to achieve these clears is due to the Jaguar Primary Hall, as this has been double-dipping since Spiritborn released. We can then scale this double-dipping further by picking some additional double-dipping aspects and mechanics, funneling straight into the insanity and turning the double-dipping into a full-blown gangbang instead. That is, however, the basics of how the build functions. Now, why the hell is everyone at the top playing Rake then, and not Quill Volley as anticipated? Well, Rake has some benefits. One of the main ones is that it has inherent cooldown reduction, meaning you're solving all of your cooldown reduction instantly without having to invest in it. You simply spam your Rake and you'll have a permanent uptime on all of your skills. This on top with being able to hit all enemies at once with your massive paws is fantastic, and even if Rake wasn't the top pick right now, it would still be my recommendation for Thorns enjoyers, as it's simply faster than the options and has a lot of quality of life going for it. Now to the question, is this build worth playing? Well, in terms of speed, it's fairly quick with a bunch of mobility, especially if you make a few quick changes to the skill tree, as that will allow you to dash from enemy to enemy while still having the hunter for gap closing. This makes it decently strong for farming, probably a 4 out of 5. And the gearing, not too bad getting online either actually. The main problem being that you're filling up several of your gear slots with uniques that doesn't have any defense on them. You're rocking a unique helm, chest, pantaloonies, and preferably also a ring that have 0 defense, meaning if you want to do any serious pushing without fucking dying, then you absolutely need banger gear with GA max life and high paragons. I've seen loads of newbies complain about this, and yeah, it's just how it is. Probably a 2 out of 5 here. And finally, how easy it is to play. If you want to pit push with this, especially if you don't have the gear for it, then it's not easy at all. You need to gather up enemies with Vortex, which has a fairly small AoE. You need to have full uptime on your skills, press some of them at the right time, always make sure to stand within the mystic circles when dealing damage, and it's just not particularly fun to have to deal with. It's not impossible, and you're getting a lot of help from the Rake skill itself, but probably a 2 or 3 out of 5 as well. So should you play it? I'll let you decide for yourself. Now let's take a quick break to discuss your balls for a sec, because it's time to throw out that saggy old germ-infested thing you call a razor and treat yourself to an actual trimmer. Introducing my favorite new grooming tool, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped. Now this is what I call versatility and control. Having two next-generation skin-safe blades, it makes sure to get the work done. Going for a thick and luscious beard? Use the trimmer blade. It can handle even the thickest of hair. Time to shave off those last 3 strands of hair of yours? Use the foil blade. It catches the finest of hairs, allowing you to get that slick and polished look. And better yet, it's packed with must-have features. With the dual-temperate LED light, there's no more missing spots or shaving your balls off by mistake. Even in low light, it's also waterproof, so you can get those balls nice and shiny in the shower. Head over to manscaped.com and grab yours. You'll get 15% off your entire order using my promo code, Paragaming. Definitely a worthwhile purchase. All right, let's check out number 2. Oh, what a surprise. Another Balazan build. The same as the previous one, just less fun. Does it differ any from the Rake one? Not really. You basically just swap out an aspect or two and you're done. The only thing I'd say is that this one is even more difficult than the Rake variant. Much more, in fact, due to the decreased cooldown reduction, and I'd honestly give the ease of play a 1 out of 5 for the people that want to maximize their pit pushing. Let's see if we can find something new instead. Yes, indeed, we did. And coming in with an insane 13 clear, we have the Hydra Sorcerer. Here with a clear from Hysteria, using the burning version from Roxy. Yes, that's right. It appears to be just as strong as the crit version for pit pushing as of recording this. And how does it work then? Well, shit, glad you asked. Pretty much entirely via 2 interactions. 1, we have the Ophidian Iris, allowing you to turn your Hydra into a core skill, granting it a shit ton of damage when you stack Hydra heads, and also allows it to deal AoE damage. And 2, the Serpentine aspect, granting a disgusting multiplier to Hydras from maximum mana stacking. Slap on some buffs and quality of life updates we got for our Hydras this season, and you've basically got your build online. Now, I thoroughly enjoy this build and I can 100% recommend it. Let's see why in the rankings. Firstly, speed. Sure, this version of the build looks fairly slow, especially the burn variant, but here's the kicker. You can change 2 items and a few skills, and you're able to do this
behind us. So you see, we just place the Hydra and they just die. The Hydra also resets all teleports, so this goes completely crazy. Back-to-back Speedy Gonzalez ones. See, they could just place...
Turning it into one of the fastest builds of the season. All you need to do then is to hold down your balls, teleport all over the map, and drop a Hydra every now and then to clear out the map. It's a 5 out of 5 for speed, as there's but a few other builds capable of speed clearing at this speed this season. Cough Sorcerer builds Cough. And gearing? Not too bad. The only problem is that a lot of our power in this build comes from your gear and a few stats, meaning to fully maximize your damage, you will have to hit 3 out of 3 masterworks on a lot of your gear pieces. The multipliers are simply too strong not to if you want to pit push. But getting the build online? Easy. A slight issue though, like with the Balazan builds, you are using a lot of uniques. Hell, up to 7 uniques in a lot of variants, where most gear pieces don't have defenses on them. But on the other hand, you have a lot of inherent defense in the form of perma-barriers, so you're mostly fine. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Finally, how easy it is to play. Not too bad either. The problem some people have, that is console dickheads, is not being able to put your Hydras properly, but that's easily solved by buying a fucking PC. Other than that, I can't really come up with why the build would be difficult for anyone to play. 4 out of 5. Overall, a build I'd recommend everyone to try out this season before Blizz nukes it. For rank number 4, we have the Fat Wood Chopping Man coming in hot at a pit 112. So why has this build suddenly emerged as the strongest druid build ever, not including the gigabugged Cataclysm builds? Well, easy. We got this new unique now, the Rotting Lightbringer, with its insane stats, guaranteed overpower and poison damage, where we combine the latter with the Rabid Bear and Permanent Grizzly Rage for even more poison damage, then we're getting into the insanity territory. Slap on like a gazillion buffs on top of that, and suddenly you're hitting for hundreds of billions. So, the question then, should you play it? Fuck yes, you should. The build is satisfying as hell and insanely fun to play. You're just slamming the ground with your giant paws, and everything explodes around you from shockwaves and puddles of AIDS. When it comes to speed, however, this build is kind of mid. You don't really have a bunch of mobility other than movement speed, but there is one additional bonus that makes up for it, and that's your screen-wide AoE, making it sufferable. Overall, though, probably a 3 out of 5. And setting it up, how hard is it? Meh. You can play the build from level 1. So let's say negative difficulty. There are some breakpoints to hit for keeping your grisly rage up permanently, solving your resources and getting the build as strong as it can be, but that's true for all builds, and you simply do it while you're gearing up. So getting the build online is 5 out of 5 easy peasy, and once you obtain the Rotting Lightbringer, you're basically good to go. And finally, easy of play. Brother, you're pressing one fucking button. It doesn't get much easier than that. Even your saggy old brain should be able to handle this build. 5 out of 5. I 100% recommend everyone to try this build. With that, let's check out rank number 5. Shadow Blight from Mr. Ranny himself. This is a build entirely relying on the Shadow Blight key passive, and while this build was decent before Season 9, it got Giga buffed right before launch, both buffing the key aspects and the key passive, and is now just fantastic when it comes to pit pushing. You're basically making sure to hit enemies as often as possible with shadow damage, stacking up Shadow Blight, letting it trigger, and watch as your enemies suffer. I find the playstyle fun personally, but perhaps it's not for everyone. So, speed. You're a necro, so that basically grants it negative rating when it comes to speed. But what's worse is you need to stack up your Shadow Blight to deal sufficient damage as well, making it even slower. Honestly, I don't see how you would give it anything but 1 out of 5 here. For gearing, however, things are not too bad actually. You get a lot of value from max rolled aspects and hitting your masterworks, but despite that, there are no absolute requirements to play the build. As long as you follow a build guide as to not miss any important rolls, then you're good to go. On top of that, you have a fairly substantial barrier and room to roll max life pretty much everywhere, solving defenses rather easy. Overall, a 4 out of 5. And ease of play? Well, to maximize your damage, you need density as to reset your cooldowns. On top of that, it's quite spammy and you don't have any get-out-of-jail-free card if you fuck up in terms of defenses. So due to this, a 2 out of 5. At rank number 6, we have my lovely friend Sora with his Shadow over Time Poop Wave build. Hell, I've even covered this build on the channel. And while the OG Hematochezia Poop Wave used to rely on overpowers and be somewhat annoying to get online, this one's not. And hell, who doesn't enjoy swimming around in shit? That's why we have turd eaters in charge of the Baltics. We sure love poop in our mouth over here. Anyhow, I'm a big fan of this version of the build. Getting trillions of damage over time surely is satisfying. So how do we accomplish this? Rather easy, actually. You use the ultimate shadow aspect. And then, well, you cast Blood Wave. This aspect in itself has a disgusting flat base damage, and by scaling it even further, we can get to some insane numbers. So it sure deals a good amount of damage, so how's the speed? Well, not too bad actually, because while the previous build were forced to stack up its damage, this one does not. You simply drop a massive shit on top of your enemies and keep running. And you can indeed make some minor changes to the build as to make it faster. But go to Sora's channel for that, because he's the Blood Wave guy. Overall though, I'd probably give it a 2 out of 5 in terms of speed, simply because you're a necro sloth. When it comes to gearing, if the previous seasons had a 2 out of 5 or 1 out of 5, this one's so much easier to gear for. You simply slap on the aspects, temper ultimate cooldown reduction everywhere, and you're more or less done. Better yet, this season in particular, you have a gem that increases your cooldown reduction by 25%, basically granting you a free Shaco in terms of cooldown reduction. And even if you don't have your gear fully masterworked and shit, then all you need to do is pick up an additional blood orb or just gather up some additional enemies to reset your cooldowns. Overall, a 4 out of 5, it's real easy. And finally, ease of play. For doing hard, Lord Sora pit pushing. Sure, it's hard, but for 99% of content, all you're doing is pressing one button. Most of your skills are simply on the bar to boost your damage via one of your skill tree passives. I'd give it a 4 out of 5, lower if you live for the pit push. Alright, let's head on over to the next build, and it's a man that knows his transmogs. It's Mr. Chinese Guy. He did not have a planner attached, but fortunately we've covered a similar build before, and it's a build utilizing the flesh render unique. By having this and stacking a shit ton of willpower, your defensive skills dishes out some big stonks. Here we have Bulwark, Blood Howl, Debilitating Roar, and Cyclone Armor, all being defensive skills. We simply spam them, followed by using Petrify to reset them back down to 0 cooldown yet again. And to reset his Petrify, he's evading on top of the enemies, having Flicker Step resetting the cooldown back to 0. So a spam cooldowns, Petrify, Evade, Repeat. So should you play this build? I mean, if you enjoy pit pushing, sure, go for it. But as you'll see, the build doesn't provide much else. For starters, the speed is pretty dog shit. You're relying on evading through enemies to reset your Petrify, meaning you need density to do it, otherwise you're screwed. You're not really using any mobility skills either, and mainly just focus on fighting the same monsters for a long time, granting it a 1 out of 5. When it comes to ease of gearing, it's not too bad to get it playable. A Flicker Step, a Flesh Render, and a bunch of willpower is all you need, really. But unfortunately, you're not really dealing any good damage unless you start hitting your masterworks and get that willpower real high. Overall, a 3 out of 5. Finally, ease of play. I don't know, man, it's pretty fucking AIDS to play if I'm being honest. You need to evade through enemies, keep track of all your cooldowns, and you can't really do other content than pit reliably. If you're only doing high pits, then sure, a 2 out of 5 tops. Overall, not sure I'd recommend this one. Probably better to just go pulverize. For rank number 8, we have our first and only rogue build on the list, the Tiddy Twister Poison Imbuement build by Matthias. Ah, this one surely takes me back. TB was the first build I played in this game, and I played this version for a gazillion hours after that. Good times. Anyhow, what the hell is going on here? Glad you asked. TB got some nerfs, some buffs, and a few new items, all in all, making the build slower, but stronger in pushing. The reason it's fairly slow is due to us relying completely on poison imbuement to deal damage, meaning we need to stack up poisoning damage, which in turn gets higher and higher the longer a fight continues due to our lovely new Heradric Jewel Tyrant's Bane. This surely makes the build a nasty pit pusher, but waiting for this to stack up is not too enjoyable if you want to speed farm. This in turn grants this build a 2 out of 5 when it comes to speed. So if you want speed, go Pen Shot or Death Trap. Sure, you'll drop a few pit tears, but it will feel like playing this build on a shit ton of illegal substances. When it comes to gearing, however, it's easy as hell as it's a build that is strong all the way from the early to end game. Hitting your master crits and getting your mythics are of course important, but not near as important as the other builds on this list. All you really need is some resource generation, preferably a starless, and you'll be on your way. A 4 out of 5. Finally, ease of play. This is indeed a rogue build, making it inherently more difficult than all the other builds here just from the fact that you've got more to keep an eye on. Unstable elixir, crowd control, uptime on your damage multipliers, and more. So if you're coming from let's say, a brain-dead barb build or something, then you're going to struggle. A 3 out of 5 in terms of ease. But if you've played a rogue before, then you're not going to have any issues at all. For rank number 9, we have, wait, what the hell, a barb. This can't be right. Interesting. Barb appears to have putting in the work this season as well, making it the shittiest class in the game, but only by a small margin. And while it may not do the highest of pit pushing, it has one added benefit: it's fun as hell. It's definitely one of the most fun barb builds so far, and if you want to roll a barb this season, go with this build. And how does it work then? Well, shit, glad you asked. It's all due to the new sneakers, Hooves of the Mountain. This is what allows our basic skills to deal AoE damage, while also granting them a huge damage bonus. Not only from the aspect, but the stats on this thing are absolutely massive as well. Not unlike something else, am I right? I'm talking about my massive ego. Other than the sneakers, there's one thing that's carrying the build. And if you watched my pre-Season 9 video on the top builds, then you know what I'm talking about. Correct. Stacking a shit ton of max fury. Because it so happens that we have both Ramaladni and the adaptability aspect gaining a large chunk of damage from maximum fury. And last time I checked, you can get somewhere in the ballpark of 400 fury or so, which is pretty crazy. Slap on some added buffs to our basic skills, the Pain Gorges, and this is what we get. Now, while this may be a high pit run, the speed of this build in particular is fantastic. You can play other basic skills, sure, but Lunging Strike does two things. First, it dashes you from enemy to enemy, making you fast as fuckboy, and secondly, it has a built-in bleed, which when combined with Rage of Haragath, resets your cooldowns, making it easy peasy to keep spamming them. This makes the build a speed farming machine. 5 out of 5. What about gearing then? Well, thing is, you're looking at about 7 uniques, and preferably some Ubers to start popping off. On top of that, a lot of your damage is tied to maximum resource, meaning you need to master crit it before you see those big numbers, which sucks, considering the other stats on your items that are not maximum resource are typically fairly useless. Just getting the build online is fairly easy though, 1 or 2 uniques and you're online, but overall probably a 2 out of 5 if you want to succeed. And finally, ease of play, 5 out of 5. What, that high, huh? Well, it's a barb build. What did you expect? The average barbarian player can barely wipe his own asshole. Of course, they had to make their builds easy to play. All right, enough talking about assholes. Let's check out the final build of the day. And it's, drum roll please, a minion build. Yes, that's right. Minions are actually bonkers this season. With its new unique, the Hand of Naz, the build's actually slapping. And it's quite easy to understand how it works. You put on your gloves, you summon mage minions, and you're done. All we do here is simply to boost our skelly mages, sacrificing all of the other minions, and we go AFK while they clear up the battlefield. Great, huh? Yeah. It's probably the best minions has ever been. So if you enjoy the summoner playstyle, then this is definitely the season. When it comes to speed, it's quite shit though. But that's not due to the speed of the build being shit per se, it's simply due to you playing a Necro. But for a Necro build, you're mainly just moving forward and having your minions kill shit. So you can probably get it to a 2 out of 5 here. For gearing, it's better though. You don't need shit for the build to come online. Until you've obtained the Hand of Naz, you simply play with all of your minions, including your Skelly Boys and the Golem guy. This is also a great version of the build, but once you've obtained the Naz, then you'll truly start popping off. Either way, it's one of the easiest builds to make, 5 out of 5. And ease of play? Well, seeing as your minions are doing all the work while you're just sitting there massaging your ballsack, how about we give it a 4 out of 5. I wouldn't give it a 5 out of 5 because to play it optimally, you actually need to press buttons, gathering up enemies, keeping blight up, and more. But for 99% of content, you're just AFK. And with that, we're all done with this video. Get yourself trimmed with Manscaped, and I'll see your balls in the next one.